The Cold War was a period of geopolitical tension between the United States and the Soviet Union. It lasted from the end of World War II until the early 1990s. Instead of large-scale fighting between superpowers, there were only regional conflicts known as proxy wars. In these proxy wars, each side supported different sides of the conflicts. The two main military alliances during the Cold War were NATO and the Warsaw Pact. NATO stood for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. The Soviet Union formed the Warsaw Pact in response to NATO. These alliances represented opposing ideologies and political systems. NATO embodied democratic capitalism. The Warsaw Pact represented communist authoritarianism. Both alliances maintained large military forces. They prepared for a potential conflict that never happened. The existence of these two powerful alliances created a global climate of suspicion and mistrust. Each side viewed the other's actions with suspicion. This led to an arms race and a constant threat of nuclear war. World War II ended with the Allied victory over Nazi Germany. However, this victory came at a cost. Tensions emerged between the Western Allies and the Soviet Union. They disagreed on the future of post-war Europe. The Western Allies, led by the United States, sought to contain the spread of communism. They wanted to promote democracy and free markets in Western Europe. The Soviet Union, on the other hand, aimed to establish a buffer zone of friendly states in Eastern Europe. This was to protect itself from future invasions. NATO was formed in 1949. This was a direct response to the perceived threat posed by the Soviet Union. The United States, Canada, and several Western European nations pledged to defend each other against aggression. This was a collective defense agreement. An attack on one member would be considered an attack on all. The Warsaw Pact was formed in 1955. It was the Soviet Union's response to the establishment of NATO. It included the Soviet Union and its satellite states in Eastern Europe. The Warsaw Pact solidified the division of Europe into two opposing blocs. NATO's primary goal was to deter Soviet aggression and protect its members from attack. It adopted a strategy of collective defense. NATO relied on a combination of conventional military forces and nuclear deterrence. NATO's military strategy was based on the concept of forward defense. The Warsaw Pact's primary goal was to maintain Soviet control over Eastern Europe. It aimed to counter NATO's influence. The Warsaw Pact adopted a strategy of massive retaliation. This relied heavily on the Soviet Union's large conventional military forces and its nuclear arsenal. The different goals and strategies of the two alliances reflected their opposing ideologies and political systems. NATO was a voluntary alliance of democratic states. The Warsaw Pact was a military alliance dominated by the Soviet Union. Flashpoints, moments that defined the standoff.